Seeing that this is the reorganization meeting of the Jackson School Board, I'd like to call the meeting to order. The first order of business is to elect a chairperson. Are there any nominations for the chair? Are there any other nominations? Any discussion?
Got to deal ahead of time.
We were trying to.
Yeah.
Can they be co-chairs?
There should be one.
There you go. They're going to deal with one.
Any discussion?
I'll just say I think you both would do a fabulous job. It just would be nice to have a little bit of change. Just for a little variety and just a little organizational, best practices.
I'll do it, Jerry.
Yeah, we need a vice chair, right?
Yeah.
We always have a coach.
We all.
Oh, you do- yeah.
That's not going to be a big deal.
So all those in favor of Jen as the chair of Jackson School Board? All those opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention. Madam Chair, it is your meeting at this time.
I'm not prepared. Election of vice chair.
I nominate Jerry.
Second. All those in favor? No discussion. Meetings, dates, and times. Like to keep it to the third Monday, 6 p.m. Any discussion? Motion?
No, I don't need any motion.
Good. All right.
Just-
Keep it. Same rules of order and agenda format. Robert's rules apply. In a loose fashion. We're following Bob's rules. That's Robert. Committee assignments.
It's what, 5 years ago those were?
Yeah.
We changed it.
I think what I would like to do, and I haven't looked at them lately, is I want to make sure myself that with the policy and joint boards that we have all of the committees on here that we need to make sure that we're at meetings that we should be at. So if we're supposed to be at a Bartlett meeting, then we should be at a Bartlett meeting. And so that's the only thing. So Kevin, off the top of your head, we have all of those here.
You have all of the Jackson Board meetings. There are other meetings, for example, the Conway Policy meeting has SAU 9 representative, usually it's the chair of the SAU 9 board. They are open to the public, they're posted, so anybody is free to attend those meetings. And then the SAU 9 Wellness Committee is another committee that is there.
And that meets on Mondays at 3:30, is that right?
Yes, I think it's the first Monday.
First Monday.
I'd have to check
Yeah.
again.
I think every year that comes up, it's just a difficult time for most of us to meet.
Both days are represented for regular board representative for.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
No.
I do believe, I think Lisa White has attended.
Lisa White wrangled it up for us.
Okay, yeah.
Day that we couldn't make.
Yeah.
Or is it tomorrow? No, it's just.
Right, that's, you've got it scheduled for next month, which actually is a good thing that that's coming up. We're reorganizing the committees because you and I both get invitations to that.
Correct.
And I always forget who's on, so.
Yes.
So that's our local one, that's the Jackson one.
That's the Jackson one, that's not the SAU 9 Wellness Committee. So what I would like to do is somehow is to add on to make sure that we have representation appointed to anything that we should be with Bartlett as well as the SAU 9 so that we're not overlooking anything.
We'll put a big matrix of all the school board meetings together and who's represented.
Well, because we know the schedule when we're here. So like, if we just make it a point to, as we're in the room together, to say like,
Right, but I want it to be more formal.
Yeah.
Recognize that there's a meeting coming up and if we discuss it even amongst ourselves pre or post the meeting to make sure that we know who's coming. And then we can verbalize Do we have any manifests today?
You do. And I think that is, you need to discuss who signs the manifest.
We always have to share.
The chair and the co-chair.
Do you need a nomination, or can we nominate them?
No, that used to be
Same as us, just sharing.
chair, vice
Do
chair.
you guys want to do it?
I think the only thing that we have to have is that we're all.
Actually, you know what? I think, can it only be two?
No.
I think we should authorize all of us, because you can see what we have later on the agenda, they want to pay bills twice a month.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So people have to be driving down the S9 office or something.
Yeah,
So everyone's authorized, but we need just two.
two to go.
Standard is the chair or vice chair will do it.
We'll just, there is what's a payroll manifest, so if you folks want to sign, there are 3 slots, usually 2, and then a third is the alternate. Because you have to have those signatures on file, so when you pass that around later tonight.
Just keep signing down below.
Just keep signing below, yeah.
Right. Thank you. All right, approved minutes from 3/19.
So moved.
Any questions, discussion, corrections? Keith? All those in favor of approving? Abstain? Abstain. All right, citizen comments? Yes, Sarah?
Yes, Sarah Clemens. This past Tuesday, a member of your board, Mrs. Delgado, and the principal came to the selectmen's meeting at 3:30 and mentioned that they want to go over, and it's been mentioned here many times in the last few months, about different buildings in town. And they came with the suggestion of using possibly the town library, old library building as part of the school system to hold library books, desks, and so on and so forth. I'm requesting that when the board has these meetings, if, like you just said, you post them at your regular meeting, that there's going to be a meeting with the selectmen to discuss the use of the town buildings. And if it's at all possible, this meeting could be other than 3:30, because people that are on the library committee, the old library committee at this time, a 3:30 time is their work day and they can't leave. So, and also some of the rest of the citizens work at that hour of the day as well. So if it's something, if these meetings are going to take place between the two boards, possibly it could be done at a school meeting at 6 or at a designated time when other citizens would be able to attend. And also, when you have these meetings, if the minutes of these meetings, which Selectman John Allen said that there would be minutes to these meetings, if those minutes could also be published in your school minutes that are on the e-news as well, so that more people will know what's going on, because to be perfectly honest, after the vote, and I know you will always have a little bit of something in here that says old business and it says early childhood development. People are not understanding that that is still going on about the preschool and 3-year-olds. So I think that we want to get it out there, you want people to know what's going on. I'm requesting that you please consider doing this.
Okay, I'm not sure. I'll have to look into where those minutes were posted. I don't know if you know.
I can see that, it was a selectmen's meeting, so there's both video of it, as well as written minutes.
Oh, is this the selectmen?
Yeah, it was a regular selection.
Oh,
There were no
you
meetings.
just talked in
It wasn't
citizen
a-
comments?
It was, they were stay allowed Gail and myself to approach approach them to talk about it. So which is on our agenda today, and we'll be talking to you about that.
So we're keeping everybody as abreast as we can. I mean, it's the first step. If there's anything further, we will be doing updates regularly at these meetings, and those minutes are published.
Okay, and the other thing that I did speak to the people that were at this wedding meeting, and yes, I know it's filmed, was also that I felt that this could have been approached and spoken at the school meeting after the regular town meeting of the school, and at the town meeting of the select.
Thank you.
that at the time it says no money can be spent this time, I felt that that would have been a perfect opportunity for both boards to speak to the citizens that were at that meeting, to let them know what was going on. And as I say, you guys have all spoken about it in the early childhood ed update here at these meetings, but I think it would have been really great if the board had spoken at our town meetings in March, both boards, to the people that would gather, to let them know that this was still on the agenda, and also to let them know that you were talking about speaking together and talking about the use of our municipal building. It's just getting it out, that's all.
So if I can just speak to that, it was inappropriate for me to jump into the selectmen's meeting as a guest and visitor there, but for our purposes, Sarah, as you might remember, at our annual meeting, we did bring it up in front of everyone, and we had a conversation about us approaching the selectmen to see if there was interest in having New Hampshire Listens facilitated event to see what we want to do with our town buildings, and in a bigger sense, look at our strategic plan for the town. Do you remember that? So at our end, we did bring that up, but we will, of course, keep everyone in the loop about it. I mean, one thing I would just want to remind you, because I know that this is a particular concern to you, is that we never meet as a forum outside of published meetings, and we get minutes from all of that. But in order for us to move business forward, there are tons of ad hoc committees, regular meeting committees, and sometimes we'll call each other to talk about things so that we're clear in the background. We make no decisions that are not in front of everyone. And so when Gail and I approached the selectmen, that was in fact us looking to move that ball forward. And that's why we brought a letter that could be given to them and that could get into the minutes, and that we'll talk about tonight. So.
And Sarah, we as a board don't even know what happened there yet. She'll tell us tonight. I know that the attendance, and I have no idea what it was about, but sort of the way the process is. So tonight, we'll get filled in. And the same thing with next month. If we have a couple of ad hoc meetings and there's no minutes and are posted, at the next meeting, we fill each other in on what happened. So that's probably the best place to get the information for those when it does happen.
Well, when you say ad hoc committees, what does that mean exactly?
Like we just talked about, we just did all our committee assignments, and we talked about that, there's 15, 20 different committees, and one or two of us are on all these committees and meet with other people. So we're not meeting as a school board or making decisions. We're getting information to bring back to the rest of the board.
And that's, I guess, what I'm asking, if when you have these type of meetings, if, you know...
Well, those might be like somebody's house or having a coffee. They might be an official meeting. You don't know. Like we can't really post those, but we'll always fill you in. And on this next meeting, if something like that happened, at our next school board meeting, like I think in a minute you're going to see Jess talk about that meeting that you were just talking about.
Gail,
Well, I just wanted to say, at our last meeting, we talked about having other options, and you asked if I would look at our school building further and that we would look at other town buildings further. So Jessica and I from the original committee decided that we'd put our heads together about the church, the library, any other particular locations. So what we did as a selectmen was just ask them if we could consider that building. It wasn't a definite that we will or we won't.
Right.
We were just asking, can we look at this building as an option?
Thank you.
Any other citizen comments or anything? Gail, is it appropriate if I go ahead?
Yes.
So I just wanted to take this time to thank Black Mountain, John, Allie, and the school representatives of Neil and Susan for the help with ESSE. I know it's for this year in particular, we missed the boat on the public thank you, but that doesn't mean it's any less disingenuous to us. I know I've worked with Black Mountain for years, and I know all the work that goes in behind the scenes to make these things happen. It's not easy, and it's not always fun dealing with parents and dealing with the weather and all the things that come with owning a ski industry and making it all come together for the students that live here in Jackson. And I know the lineage of skiing goes back to, Jerry skied there, right, when you were...
Yep.
When you were young, if you were young, and so I know that there's a lot that goes into it, and I appreciate everything that Black Mountain does for the town, for the community. It is a gem for the community. The kids love it, they own it, they want to go back there. It's often their first chance at being somewhat independent. I don't see other parents dropping off kids quite as young at other mountains as they do at Black. To say, here, you can go own the mountain for the day, even if it's not ESSC. It's kind of a rite of passage when they get to be in 6th grade, and you're like, okay, you can go to Black on your own, and I'll drop you off and pick you up with your friends. And we know, as a parent, I know that there's going to be a mom or a dad or somebody there, a caring employee there every 20 feet. God forbid something happens, whether it's inside or outside. So it really does inspire us to behold the community and you guys working with us. And I know you don't get anything from ESSC, so we really do appreciate everything that you do and working with us over the years. So it's really been quite enough. And Neil, I know you dealing with the parents on one end and ESSC on the other end and Black on the other end. To try and make it all work as a community is not nearly easy, and we appreciate you doing it even after your children are out of the program and collecting the skis every Friday and schlepping them up to the mountain and making sure they're in the right spot for everybody and not losing any children and or skis is helpful. So I really appreciate it. And who's in what group, and my kid doesn't want to be in this group anymore, and who's purple, who's blue, who's lavender, all that stuff. So. And Susan, thank you for organizing it on our end, making sure every teacher's there that needs to be there, and the bus is there when it needs to be there, and who's in the logistics, and Gail for sitting this year inside, making sure whoever has their snow pants and their gloves, and who's sick and who's not, and where's the kids, and signing them out and that. It goes on and on. So I really appreciate it. It's a lot of work, but it really, it builds a world of good for these kids and for the community. So thank you very much. We have some for Miss Susan. So thank you. Thank you. Don't drop it. I don't know if it's breakable. Thank you for all you do. Please come back next year. John, Chair of Black Mountain, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. You can all just for this, you're getting court. Thank you, Alan. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it here.
You missed a couple here and there.
Do you have anything to say other than we need to keep the lodge cleaner?
Like Jen said, it was easy to sit and watch the kids have a blast and all enjoy themselves.
I thought they behaved pretty well. Please.
Allie, run before he starts up the story. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. You don't have to say
To be honest, thank you guys.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other statements? Any other citizen comments? We'll move on. No? All right, back to us then. Presentation of school programs?
Nope, none.
Gail?
Oh,
You have some.
I think I do.
Okay.
We've been running the summer camp program, and since I've been there, the fees have been the same the last 11 years. And so I'm suggesting that we increase the fees to $75 for the week, 5 days for Jackson residents and $125 for non-residents.
That's the summer program.
Yes.
It was probably like 85.
And last year we getting 50, correct?
Last year was 50.
Yeah, which is incredibly reasonable, and 75 is still incredibly reasonable.
So we have run a summer program for 5 weeks every summer. And Jackson children have been able to attend for $50 for the week. And I'm recommending to the board they increase the fees for that to $75. There is a line in our budget for the summer program, yes, for the staff. Thank you. You let me amount.
Thank you, Gail, this looks great. We don't need to vote on anything. Give our blessing. Good.
The only question, I mean, you're pretty in tune with the parents and families' abilities, you're pretty sure everyone's.
Yes, there's a scholarship option available to those that need help.
All right, old business, early childhood ed update. Jessica, do you want to
Sure.
review?
So, as we all remember, we, as a board, elected not to put a preschool on the warrant this last year, in largely in part due to lack of space. And so, one of the ideas we had was to start to talk to the selectmen about strategic planning for the town and public space. And we're still kind of working on that. That hasn't come to fruition, but we did tell Gail that we wanted to move preschool forward. We want to keep that conversation going. And so, since space was the main issue, Gail and I got together a couple weeks ago and thought, let's go back to some of the original thinking that we had as a preschool committee. And originally, one of the spaces we looked at, and there was actually a lot of support for in the committee, was the old library. So we talked about, could we make that work? How would we make it work? Gail thinks it would work if we were to lease the space from the town and use it as school space part of the time, with the idea that we would keep it looking pretty much the way it looks right now. We wouldn't put the preschool in there. What it would do would allow us to expand our campus. And as a single board member, I can tell you I was interested in that because even without a preschool, I think we would benefit from using different spaces. Especially with this personalized learning push that we're making in the SAU. So Gail and I approached the selectmen last Tuesday, April 9th, basically just filling them out to say, is this even an option? Is this a conversation that we could have? And, laying out the general logistics of what we thought it might look like, with the understanding that we would need to bring it back to you for support or not support. So one of the things we need to hear from you before we go back to the selectmen again is whether or not this is an initiative you would want us to pursue, or an avenue you want us to pursue. As you know, space is tight here in Jackson, so short of building something new, we have to be creative with our space.
And if I could just add to that, one of the positives of the plan is that it would enable people to continue to use it, the sewing club and bridge club, some of the other folks in town who are using it would still be able to use that. We envision it much in the way the Whitney Center is shared with the school. We book in the school days that they would need library or meeting space, but then hours around it could be available, just like this building is available to the townspeople.
And one other little piece that we've learned, and I think we hadn't actually originally thought of, is that when we use the Whitney, there's this space here that everyone can use, and then there's the conference room there, and to some degree the art room, but there's no sort of middle size space. And so when we went over and visited, it just so happened it came to light in a couple of different conversations that it would really be handy if that was a space that the community felt that they could use and access more easily. And we spoke with the town administrator over there, Julie, and the selectmen. We also spoke with some of the folks from the library committee, and everyone seems pretty enthusiastic about it, at least exploring it. Where it will go, we don't know, but at this point what we're asking is for your endorsement to keep moving forward, to get that information to bring back, with the idea that if we're to put a preschool on the warrant, we need to bring it back to the public for September or October so that we can have public meetings and get it on the budget for the next year.
So my only comment on that was history speaks for itself. So that was for the school. And when it would rain, we went to the library that day. And then the library moved to the new library. And we tried to go there and get kids there. And it wasn't happening.
Right.
So then we put the books in the school. So my fear would be we move all of our books back over there. And if it rains, then we're not library today. So that would be my only comment. I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just saying that I don't know that it's the most ideal spot to have to walk to the library. We did it for years, and it was a chore. I mean, maybe Gail feels different now, but it was a chore. I mean, Emily, I remember we had to get parent volunteers sometimes to help walk the kids over to the library.
Sure. So my question would be, I would definitely like to see you continue to look at it, and I would like to make sure that Gail, when, if we do move forward, I would like to hope that we move forward investigating that. I'd like it to go back to the staff to make sure that they feel that it's a good move as well, that they're behind it, that things that happen during the day, if that was the case and the preschool doesn't come into the library, how do they feel about the atmosphere of the school, the chaos of the school, making sure that that will be a good fit. Because that was the one thing that came.
Well, I would say it should be two separate things. I don't think we should be doing this because we want a preschool. We should be doing this because we think that's a good spot to have our library, but not because we want a preschool. So,
No, that doesn't make sense.
I would disagree entirely, Keith. I mean,
That's the whole reason we do it.
I mean, just to go back to the preschool issue, because that's what the agenda item is. I would like to make a motion that we continue to research and go for preschool. And as part of that, we formally submit to the selectmen use of the library. To continue researching that, and that's how that first, I'm making a motion to continue to push for preschool and to formally request the selectmen use of that building.
And investigate what
That's what that would entail.
Yeah.
I can't get on board with that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So I don't think it'd be a second to that motion, so.
And I feel like there's also an opportunity to then take a middle path to, last year talking about the library being on a bunch of carts all over the place, and kind of strike a balance between the library being in the old library space as well as utilized potentially on some carts in the school, kind of having a little bit of both instead of like one or the other.
So, I mean, to me, like Sarah's been asking for more transparency. What I'm trying to provide is more transparency. Let's make it realistic. We're going for preschool. The library might be part of that. So I'm making a motion that we do that. And that gives Gail more flexibility as far as what she's really asking for. It would give people that are researching a little more flexibility to provide more transparency for Sarah and people that are opposed to it to say, hey, you know, to come and say, we don't want you to do that. Or for people to come and say, hey, we want you really, that's a great use, and we're not using that library right now, so the school can, that's fantastic. We can put that out there so that people can respond to us in more genuine ways. And I think that would be a great use for the school. And as far as the details, Keith, that it being used, this staff that's here now has used that building in the past and knows exactly how it works and doesn't work. Gail's familiar with how exactly how that can work and doesn't work. They'll figure that out. They might say, hey, you know what, it's not going to work for this reason, that reason, the other reason. But it's not really for us to sit here and kind of determine those things for them. They need to do that research, but they need a real purpose to do that. We can't just say,
That's what I said, which is let's not have it part of the preschool, let's ask them to go independent. It's almost like we're pigeonholing horses. Go look at this if you want to go to preschool here. I'd rather ask.
but that is why. There's no other reason why we go look at that without preschool or
Wait, if I
buildings.
can jump in, I'll second the motion on getting it, once again, on the record, to move the preschool forward. I think that has been fairly obvious, but let's get it once again on the record. So I'm 100% for that. If we're able to expand our campus, it is going to be a natural consequence that we will be able to put a preschool in, according to Gail, and at this time. And again, we're in the initial stages of looking at it yet again, which is a funny way to say that. We're initially looking at it yet again. But just as one member, I want to just jump on what Keith is saying, which is that when you really look at our campus and what we're trying to offer our students and the idea that we're trying to get them more involved in the community and to use more of this place-based investment model of education so that we're using mentors in the community and we're getting folks like Emily to come and ski with people and, you know, we're pulling in chefs to come and show kids how to do things. The more space we have available, that we can also share with the town, the better off we're going to be. Because it is good for our community, I believe, to have our kids out in the community intermingling with other people. So if we can expand our campus, I'm hoping it's going to move to a preschool, but even just to expand it so that we can have better use of that space. Because I also happen to sit on the Whitney committee, and what we found is that with a more formal coordinator, the space gets used more. People think of it more. It's more of a community space. And isn't that what we want, whether it attracts more families or more kids or not? We want more people to be using our spaces. It's a beautiful historic building that is underutilized at the moment.
Well said. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Vote.
And to be sure, so when we go to ask the selectmen or have discussions with the selectmen or the whole library committee, if we don't have a real position, then it's hard for them to begin discussions and to know what to respond. It's like, well, we're kind of thinking about the building, but then we have to bring it back to the school board. So, and this is just a request that, hey, we'd like to use that space. Let's say that becomes available, or let's say it gets shot down, we don't know, but let's say it's going to be available. It doesn't mean because we're doing this tonight that we're going to use that space. It just means we're investigating it. So it's not really to say, yes, we're going to do it. We still need to make another decision down the road as to make it more formalized. And this is just so we can make an actual request and they can make an actual answer.
Okay. All those in favor? The motion set forward to move ahead and investigate the library for the library for the school.
Well, it's to formally request use of that building by the school district.
Thank you. What do you say?
So what was the whole thing? Nothing to do with preschool?
Well, to move forward with preschool, and that's and in concert with that, is to make a formal request to the selectmen of the old library committee for use of that building, so that we have a real position to pass. The two were together.
Would simplify things to just make it into two motions. So all in favor of moving the preschool forward with an intent to get it on the agenda for a fall 2019 budget? Can that
I'll
be
withdraw my
done?
motion.
So-
To you withdraw a second,
I withdraw the second.
because that was the first.
Well, I'm just saying, let's get Keith on board.
I second the motion.
Okay,
So all those in
first
favor of the
motion
first
is basically
motion?
what Jerry said as far as preschool goes.
Thank you.
Okay.
We're making-
You're going to make a
It's-
motion to continue to push for preschool.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think Jen can second that. Am I right? So that's four of us?
I'm moving forward, voting.
Okay, five of us. All right.
Okay. Then to formally request.
I make a motion to formally request use of the old library to the board of selectmen of the old library committee.
Second.
All those in favor? All of us.
Look at that, we got
I
nine
couldn't
now.
because I don't mind using the library, but one thing, just that I want the preschool to go to too, but we talked about the biggest thing was space. Well, I have 3 other reasons, 4 other reasons, 5 other reasons. And one of them is to make sure that the kids that we are required to educate are not sacrificing
Right.
anything.
And I think we're all on board.
And that's why the library scares me a little bit, because we're gonna move over there, it's all good, now we have room, we get the preschool in, and, you know, the arrangement in this library, I don't know the plan. So that's my only
No, I
concern, is
think
I don't.
that we need to hear those concerns so that we can look into them.
Yeah.
I mean, because it doesn't mean that there's some in the school, some over there, we don't know. This literally was our first foray back into this for the next budget year, so.
And thank you for your time and effort. All right, B, family liaison, so the family support liaison. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Neil. Bye. So I'll start, Jessica can fill in the holes, I'll obviously leave. So we met, Jessica and I went over and met with the Bartlett team to pretty much review Vicki Garland's position and where she is now. She is moving on at the end of next year, retiring. So we needed to know what her formal position is at this time, because there really isn't a formal job requisition for her. So that was the first thing. So Bartlett has now taken the position they're going to go. They're working with Vicki. They've gotten back to us with a little information, but we have not met again. We're going to meet in early May when we have completely flushed out what Vicki is doing currently and what we are looking at for a job position. And so as a board, we are also looking at what does she currently do now, what services is Jackson utilizing, what services does Jackson want to utilize, and how is this position playing with us as we move forward. So there's still some questions out there. Just want to give an update. We have an update. You okay with that?
You did it. The only clarification I would have is that that meeting is May 31st at 9 a.m. So, a quick question about meetings. They're not all open to the public, correct?
No, if
So that's something.
you have a quorum of the board,
Right.
either board, it has to be a posted meeting.
Right, but if it's not, let's say it's Jen and I at a meeting,
That is-
then that is, okay. So, that might be helpful to, just a clarification on that. If there's a meeting, we have a quorum, it's not open to the public, that doesn't mean you can't ask us about it. So, you know, if we're having that meeting on May 31st, by all means, call, you know, and Rick, you know this, Sarah, anytime. And everyone, all of you, Susan.
I do have a couple questions on that, I guess a clarification myself. So we pay, Vicky does, I think, with multiple hats, correct?
Yes.
We pay her to take care of the high school kids separate.
Yes.
But we don't, she's not expected to do anything for our kids in Bartlett any more than the math teacher, or the gym teacher, or the music teacher is, correct?
Correct, she's the guy.
Right, she
Yeah.
did nothing for K through 6, but 7 and 8. just
Now,
whatever she's
didn't we just put it on our last thing for a personalized learning coordinator on our last budget? So if we're thinking about doing a position, I would think that it would work with that.
Yeah.
I don't think we would need to continue with that and this.
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
So we're not removing anything at this point.
Yeah.
We're still flushing it out.
And part of what we're fleshing out is that personalized learning person does a very different job than what Vicky does. So she's actually been very conscientious in getting us follow-up from that meeting. Basically, she's in all these meetings right now trying to actually figure out what she does because there is no job description. So once we have that, then we can compare it.
Yeah,
and
because I
figure
think
it out.
that's kind of what she does for us at the high school right now, in a
No.
way.
Not what we're
Recognizing kids' strengths and weaknesses and helping them with that.
She's
You know, if you want to call it that, broad.
catching them if they're
Yeah.
falling, hopefully. But if
Yeah.
they're at level or above, or if they're doing extended learning opportunities or personalized learning, it's a little bit different. So
Are you getting emails about that?
I just got, Vicky had sent us notes.
You could just forward those to me.
Oh, yeah, you got to.
Oh, you didn't get them?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, so, yeah, I'll be glad to share those with you.
Instructional issues? School calendar?
I have a question on that. Did that thing push forward, there was some bill or something where they were trying to force all schools to not start before the other day?
There's no RSA.
Did it die?
legislation. Yeah.
There was something going on.
There was.
That's right. And I guess another question, you know, for the more of a question, but that's to keep in mind, it appears that SAU 9 and Conway in general still wants to go 180 days a year instead of hours, you know, is that something that everybody's abandoned? Is anybody talking about that anymore?
No, I think that, well, if I might, I think that there is the opportunity, so you start off with 180 days, X number of hours. By the time you take out early release days, and I think people are conscious of that, especially further north, we get with 2-hour delays.
Yeah.
I think there is an opportunity within that calendar to take a look at it.
Because isn't that why they changed the reading break at the high school? Because it wasn't considered learning time?
You have to have, that's right, you have to have a minimum number of hours.
Yeah.
You do have,
So was that for that reason? Because it seemed like it was moving and then it seemed like it stalled.
there might be a lot of different reasons for that.
I just hate to see us stuck before Labor Day, and I think that would solve all of our issues.
Right. Yeah.
You know, because then you have 5 days, if we don't have snow days, fine, we stick with 180. But now, if we have snow days, we start saying, hey, we're going hours, we're still finishing the last day. I think that's something I'd like to see keep going.
Yeah, I mean, how do we continue that conversation? Because I'm
We can
interested
do it
in
ourselves,
Yeah.
enforce the issue. We can say, yeah, we want to do this.
Right.
And maybe that will trigger everybody else to follow through. Maybe Tamworth comes next, and Rockville comes next. I mean, I would suggest by the time we look at next year's calendar, that there's no talk. We seriously think about doing that.
You should go to the meeting.
Well, I used to be on the calendar, but not anymore.
I will tell you that there is a fiscal concern on behalf of the taxpayers in other districts that are saying we spend $200,000 a day to educate the students. And then you still have contractual obligations that are out there that you're still paying for that number of days, because they're guaranteed by contract.
Right.
Jackson's small enough, you don't have to worry about that. You guys can make up the rules however you choose to. And sometimes you do, no. But in the bigger districts, that have collective bargaining agreements, there's a certain number of days.
But, I mean, even if we went to an hourly versus a day expectation, that doesn't preclude, that's not going to change what Bartlett does or what Kent does, and we stand to that.
Not for you folks.
Right.
Transportation-wise,
Right.
for 7, 8 to 9 through 12.
It's just, and we've done that, and we've been affected that the last few years with our blizzard back. So
Right.
the days when the grammar schools are on, but our buses are very nice and kids down in the middle school.
Yeah.
So that should be the least of our concern, the transportation piece.
Yeah.
The hours versus days discussion, again, I think it's worthy to keep the discussion only. But to me, other pieces have to fall into place before that becomes a more relevant discussion. Really, when it comes to personalized learning or competency-based education, when that progresses into something different, then to me, the hours versus days discussion might become more relevant. I think until that happens, when it was discussed last time, it basically came down to the fact that the parameters of the hours versus the days, there really wasn't that much difference between the two because of what you really had to do to get the hour. You basically had to do the same 180 days anyway. So basically, it was when you want to start, when you want to finish. And inside that when you want to start, when you want to finish discussion, hours versus days, there really wasn't much of a difference. It will be more significant if education changes into something or molds into something that is different now. And that's why I think it's certainly worth to keep that conversation going. But as far as trying to drive that discussion in a calendar committee or with the whole SAU, I don't really see it being too purposeful at the moment anyway.
I think it could only help that. I mean, the last time the Conway selectmen instructed you not to finish this before the 15th or whatever. So if you had that flexibility.
I still think that, and moving into my position anyway, is that we're going to start relatively around the same time, we're going to finish relatively around the same time every year, and that's not going to change for a while. And given those parameters, I think that it's really up to administration and staff to figure out when the best days to educate the kids are, whether it's hours or days. Until education changes more, I don't see how it really matters that much. I think that the people who should be making the decisions when it comes to when you have professional development days, if we're going to pick the same start date and the same end date and the same vacation days, why does the rest of it matter to the boards and everybody else? Let the staff figure out what that's
when this calendar comes out. But if it wasn't for the sole reason for all the families and all the kids, and when the SAU9 calendar comes out, we see that the 14th of June is the last day of school. We know that the 14th of June is the last day of school. It's not that it might be the 17th, it might be the 20th. We know it's the 14th. And if we went by hours, we would know it's 14th. I mean, we don't change the structure of our days. It's just that, okay, we're allowed to go hours. We know here in Jackson.
But that's why I prefaced it with when it was decided what day you're going to start and what day you're going to finish. It really was no difference when it came down to whether you called them hours or days. So you basically still had to go to the same days.
We go 7
And if you miss snow days, you were going to have to make up those hours after the 14th. So it isn't as easy as you're going to finish.
No, because you already have it in there. But we go, I think Jackson's 11 days. Is it 11 extra days? The high school is 6
I
or
forget
7.
exactly what the calculation was, but we have the longest school day.
Yeah, so the high school goes to school 6 to 7 extra days a year if you go by hours, and I think Jackson, I think, was 10 or 11. So it would give you concrete, we know June 12th is the last day of school, we know whatever it is, August 29th is the first day of school, those aren't going to change. That's all I'm saying, is if we went by hours, then we wouldn't be, we wouldn't be, pushing on the last day of school off, pushing on the last day of school off, trying to stop earlier and earlier in August, so we're not getting out later and later in June. We know that we're going to still go to schedule 180 days, but we know that our schedule covers us for, say, 5 snow days, so we don't have to change these dates, because we're covered. That's the only benefit I can see to doing that.
I'd have to get more information on, the snow days and, currently if we miss 5 snow days, we should technically be missing academics as well. So that would be, I'd be more concerned about our students missing the academics and our teachers making sure that they're teaching what they need to teach for those days and that we get out at a certain time. So I'd have to learn more about that.
Yeah, I also think that. But I think June 20th, June 22nd, June 23rd, are we not doing anything anyway?
I know, but I'd have to figure that out.
Can I ask
have more
Two
conversations.
questions. One, when was the last time we looked at this? Because it was before my time.
The calendar?
No, this
Hours,
conversation.
3 years ago, right? We had that.
Probably up to a year ago, I think, they were even.
Yeah,
So let's hear them. I'm completely blocked
But
out.
it was Conway that was doing it.
Oh, okay.
They looked at it.
So the big
Yeah.
So the reality of it is, I mean, you just took a look at programming for the summer. You take a look at ELO. You take a look at all those different things. So the students who, really, this is a protection for the underserved population, right? I mean, in reality, that's what it is. The kids who have those experiences, they're doing all the other pieces. They're going to the camps. They're doing the extended programs. And this is extremely important for the kids to get free and reduced at lunch every single day. I mean, that is the truth. That's why they do attend all these summer programs all summer long. We did a little bit of a study last summer with, what was it, K through 6, I think. You know, like 55% of the kids attended summer programming of some type that was educational in nature, whether it's schools or career camps, these summer enrichment programs. So, you know, I think you're going to meet the hours, and if the goal is to compress the school experience, you can do that, but I'm not sure that's in the best interest of students moving forward.
Well, that goes to my second question, which is, let's say you have a student who's doing an ELO. Do those hours, are those above and beyond the 180-hour days that we're expecting, or is that folded into their 180 days of education?
Well, that's just the educational experience. You know, that's,
So it's
we don't count hours.
okay. So
We only do it because we have hours.
and it's not for tonight because we have a lot of other items, but I think this is it merits a conversation because one of the things we're finding is we're moving away from that 9 to 3. You only learn during those hours. How do we better reflect the student's experience? Is there a better way to do that? Then they must have learned, they must have gotten what they needed from 9 to 3 for those 180 days, right? Or do we need to have a bigger conversation about summer camp and why that was really happening?
Year-round school, I'm all for it.
So anyway, for another night, but
I got one more pro to the hours thing, so I don't know if anybody knows this, but so we had 6 juniors, Jackson juniors, not Kennedy, 6 juniors from Jackson that all have to scramble because of our snow days and our school year got pushed off. They all have to scramble and take their finals like a week or two, or try to take their finals a week or two early this year because they were accepted into a summer 6-week summer program that was based on all the schools.
St. Paul's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once all these, once you get all these snow days, so now they have to try to, not that it's hassle, I'm just saying, having an in-need, I think it goes a long way.
You realize nothing we do will affect what high school kids do.
I know, but it's going to start somewhere. You know?
Yeah.
Consider second reading and adoption of policies, criminal background check, and for volunteers, the GBBA, the one.
Make a motion to approve
This is the
this.
second
Yeah.
reading.
Make a motion to approve the GBBA recommended.
Second.
Any discussion, questions still?
I did have a question about this. So with the criminal record check for volunteers, so community partners overseeing things, we give parents or caregivers a notice saying this person might not have a background check, right? If it's a community partner, say for an ELO.
No, they're just not left alone.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Okay, so they're never left alone. Okay. Okay, so never left alone, okay.
Not if it's a school-approved program.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Are we doing the employment procedures as well? with this?
B1.
We're just doing B1. This is, she had a question. All right. So all those in favor of approving the GBBA after the second reading? Moving on to the GBCD employment.
I make a motion to approve of the GBCD as amended.
Questions?
Just that fourth paragraph about the appropriate check payable. Can it be a cashier's check in case the person doesn't have a bank account?
I believe so.
Okay.
Any other questions? All those in favor of approving? All right. All right, consider personnel and actions, election of personnel for 2019 and 2020.
So make a motion. Second.
We do all these at once, correct?
That's what the motion is for.
Perfect. Second?
I second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
So I'm in favor as well, sorry. With the personnel policies, just a quick question about that. I want to just point out that there's a discrepancy in the pay of the 2 bus drivers, but that is because of the experience, correct? Okay, good.
Two leaving or two new ones?
The 2 new ones.
Election of Ryan Murphy as bus driver.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
It's unanimous.
With our apologies to Mark.
They're two of the best bus drivers, they're outside, God.
Yeah.
I did that.
I love Ryan.
Yeah.
It's going to cost me a number 6 at least once a month. Sorry, that's very sad. All right, election of Louise Sandberg as bus driver.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
That's unanimous.
Business affairs, FYI.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
Janet, I did walk in 7D,
Oh, sorry.
accept the resignation of Victoria Cole.
You were going to do it.
Yeah, I was going to avoid that one. Thank you. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
7D, accepting resignation of Victoria Hill. Victoria Hill's part-time school counselor has submitted her resignation. A copy, I recommend it, obviously with regret. Can we, no?
So moved.
All right, second. All those in favor? With regret?
That's unanimous.
I hope you don't have to something stupendous. Anything else you sneak in there, Kevin?
I did walk in something EG later on.
All right, budget status report, 1819. Any questions? Thank you.
It's like, it's a little scary, but what's over there? The budget?
Yeah, I'm getting closer, tighter.
Yeah.
Okay, budget transfer between functions. Do you have to read it? Okay. Good. Audit letter?
Actually, I do have a question. So you're pretty sure you won't need that in the summer, that money in the summer? or-
Yeah, that was for last summer, that was.
Oh, that was last summer's one. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Everybody's good with the audit letter?
I just have a question. Do we ever change auditors? Do we ever at least different personnel within the auditing agency?
So one of the things for small districts like Jackson is this company does all the different districts. And they give you guys a really, really good deal because we did go out, well, the finance office did go out a few years ago to see what it would cost to have an independent auditor. And it was about 3 times as much as what these folks cost. Just because they're here, they know the office,
Right.
they know all the records and stuff.
Municipal accounting, there isn't really a lot of variation to it. It's pretty just cut and dry, black and white stuff that it's really more how much the costing you have it done.
Right.
It's not like, so the type of audit that it is, I mean, it's certainly worthy to look into it, not to have to ask the question, but it's not like you're gaining a lot by going out looking for different this function.
Right. No, my concern is more if we have the same account or the same auditor everywhere, it's a person, right? They get to know us, they like us, we're trying to do the right thing. So there, even the appearance of getting too close to them, I would want to be aware of. Not that we are, I'm not saying we are at all, but, you know.
Well, we can have them a vote if they find something wrong.
They what?
They're,
Yeah, but it is, letters glowing,
What
so.
they, so I'm talking about what their function is, they're not looking for something wrong.
I know, but
That's not their role.
they're making sure that everything is done properly.
Right.
No, not really. Don't need to get into a lot, but it's, like I said, it's black and white cut and dry stuff. It's not, it's basically to make sure that this form's filled in and that form's filled in.
Yeah, that's what it is.
They're not, it's not an audit where they're looking and you find problems. That's not
Right,
their function.
but just in terms of process, I mean, it's definitely a process when you look at it. All significant transactions have been recognized in the financial statements in the proper period. They're just making sure that we're filling, that we're putting everything in the right place at the right time, so.
Okay, we're good? General assurances, requirements, definitions for participation in the federal program. So I just need to sign this now that I'm chair.
Yep, well, you need to recommend, approve, sign, authorizing you to sign all these documents. This is fairly new, I think, the last 3 years.
Okay.
That these are related to all the federal programs and all the different grants that we get money from, so.
Yeah.
I have the original here, so.
Oh, okay. All right. So we're good? I'll sign it.
Well, you need a motion to
Oh, yeah.
authorize Jen to sign.
I make a motion to authorize the chair to sign general assurance requirements and definitions for participation in federal programs.
So, second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Consider adoption to Friends of the Whitney Community Center.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor? Consider paying bills twice monthly.
So what is the reason for that?
Because you folks are finding that sometimes there's 5 or 6 weeks in your district, it's holding up payroll and it's holding up paying off some of the bills because we don't have the authorization to expend your money until you folks tell us you can. So it's becoming...
So we're not paying bills more frequently, we're just having 2 bill cycles.
Right, and your budget is a little bit more, so even in the summertime, I mean, there are times where it's 5 or 6 weeks, which is a long time for the time to receive the bills in order to pay these folks.
And how do you, we should make a motion, right? Motion.
Can
So-
they be, can they be sent up to the Jackson Grammar School at any time or no? I'm just asking.
No, that was a short answer, I asked that question.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just wanted to put that out
So
there.
that means at least once a month, 2 of us probably gotta drive down.
Okay.
Carl needs to wait. I'm kidding, you do that on the street, that's fine.
We can bring them to the store. Okay, all those in favor? All right, we'll make it happen.
We just have to figure out a process of, I would suggest that we're all authorized, whenever we know what's gonna happen.
Becky or somebody usually sends us an email.
Actually, we won't all be authorized, only 3 of us. So
There'll be 3.
Oh, I thought you said we could sign all, keep signing all of them.
There's three spots for signatures, so there'll be 3 of us, so we'll be authorized.
Why don't we do 3, since you're on the budget committee and you're right at it also? Is that okay?
I'm down there a lot very
Oh, you
late.
feel
So if I have like,
That would be like-
yeah, I'm down there a lot very late, so if I know that I
No.
All right, so we know who the 3 are?
Okay, so that'll be.
Okay.
Thank you for doing that.
And just to go back to the audit piece, because I just want to make sure everyone's understanding things properly. The audit that they perform, it's a general accounting practice. It doesn't look into whether you're actually spending the money properly or not. That's our role, that's what we do. So it's,
it's just making sure we report.
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then we have a process.
And it's just like-
That's what I need to make sure, because that's what I need to make sure it's reported properly. They look in to make sure we have a process that assures that we have, that we're filling everything in properly. to know whether things are being spent properly or not, that's what our role as board members is.
I think you send out a little form every September.
Yep.
That's,
Over the year.
that's a different, for a different reason, but that's part of their general accounting practice that they facilitate.
Yeah.
So that we sign the waiver saying that we're on.
They're hanging out to dry. Okay, 8G, consider approval of increase in QT services, OT services. OT services. OT services. The Bartlett School District is currently providing OT services to the Jackson School District. An agreement was signed in August of 18, not to exceed 80 hours for the 18-19 school year due to changes in IEPs. It is recommended the Jackson School Board approve an additional 60 hours effective February 26, 19 at $38.69 per hour plus mileage for the remainder of the school year.
So moved.
Second.
And that's the budget transfer we just talked about?
No, this is for OT services.
And that's for this school year?
Yep.
Yeah.
Effective. So we have a requirement for IEP for somebody to
So
use services.
you got an idea where you're gonna find that money? Yes.
So I think just the increased need for testing that we just talked about, and this, it just goes to show, I think we're seeing an increased need for special education services.
Right, which is why we increased the budget, so we're on the right track. And I know Jackson School is on top of these things, so this is money well spent. All those in favor? All right, administrator reports.
I just have a couple of things. I'd just like to thank the town crew in Jackson and those bus drivers. I'm hopeful that we will have no more snow for the rest of at least the next 5 months or so. But, Pat Kelly, very responsive when I call him at 5 in the morning, the bus drivers, your roads aren't easy. And those folks are just dynamite. So that was part of the conversation when we hired the bus drivers, so thanks to those folks. May 2nd is the SAU 9 reorganization meeting, and that starts at 6 o'clock, and the executive board is at 5:30 prior to that. So please mark your calendar for that. We had last Thursday evening, I don't know if Jess, you were going to talk about the SAU 9 study committee that Jess sits on, different board members that are open to the public, and talking about finances and how we fund education, what the governance is in different school districts, whether, revisit the idea of cooperative high school or however we choose to do that. But it's a collective group of people who show up. This past meeting was, the presenters were from the New Hampshire School Board Association. We had 2 attorneys. Lively discussion, informative. And we will continue to do that and report out to the SAU 9 board. And then on May 15th, 2 gentlemen who have been touring around the state putting on an educational funding presentation, John Tobin and Doug Hall. Was Andrew Valinsky, who was part of the crew. They were originally part of the Claremont suit. There have been a number of requests from my office to have them up here, so that will be May 15th. We'll be putting publicity out there at 6 o'clock at the Lloyd Auditorium. And if anything, it'll be very informative for people to find out some of the craziness of how we fund education in the state of New Hampshire.
Will that answer the lottery question?
That Keno lottery, no, it will
Would
not.
not answer that question?
Yeah.
No, all right. Just some
They may
black
have an
hole
answer to
somewhere?
something,
Okay.
but, other than that, that is about it for the SAU office.
Hang on to your hats, because from here to the end of the year, we've got a bazillion things going on. It's just starting this week, you'll notice these white bags over here and the tools. The 6th graders from Bartlett are here working with our 6th graders, assembling the sea perch ROV water robots. So our kids get teamed up with a Bartlett student, and they're building out of PVC pipe and pool noodles and little engines and the whole thing. A robot that will go to a pool on Friday, and they will have the opportunity to retrieve balls and do things. So it's a great way for our kids to meet their Bartlett counterparts, do some STEM learning about robotics. And it is our Joan and John who are taking the lead. The Bartlett teachers are new this year. They've never done a sea perch, so I wanted to give a shout out to both of them for organizing it, and Klaus Belchelmark, who has provided the kits for us for free for the most part, so it enables everybody to participate together. So it's a really cool project. Keith has volunteered in the past and has just said he would volunteer again. If you're in the area between 10 and 2, stop in and see what the students are doing. It's a really, really cool thing. And then a couple of dates from our end. We have a book fair. Karen, our new media specialist, has organized a tabletop book fair. It will be opened up on the night of the UA show. And the UA show is May 9th from 5 to 7. And as all of you know, that's a time to see the children's artwork, hear some music, and see our UA staff and children exhibiting what they've learned over the course of the year, as well as doing our book fair, which will support the library. We'll get some new books for our library.
Oh, if I could jump back just for a second. The Medieval Fest, that was quite the presentation. You know what? I truly enjoyed the storytelling. I thought that was the hit of the night from those kids.
But about the food, you didn't enjoy that the most?
You know, I was jumping from meeting to meeting. Usually, it's not too many meals like this. But no, the staff. I mean, that's one thing I love about this community is you invite one, you invite them all, and the place is up as packed. So truly a celebration. But staff who worked on that, great job, great job.
We had some assist from Dexter Harvey, who came back and did some storytelling work with the kids. As you know, he used to do a lot of that with his classes when he was here. And Brian Hastings from Conway L does a lot of music, so he came and showed how he tells stories with music, and then the kids all got to practice their stories. So yeah, that was fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so back to citizen comments.
I'll just say thank you for bringing that presentation up to the Valley. Is any way that we can share that out? I think it's really, I've heard great reviews of it, so if the challenges of funding our schools, I highly, highly recommend folks to go to that. So.
And there's actually a video of one of your presentations for people who can't make it that night. That was, I thought, I mean, they're going to update it, I think, but if anyone needs that, let us
No, like
know.
in the paper too, advertising it.
Oh, we'll have a media kit ready to go.
Kevin, one quick follow-up. So we had talked about the Commissioner of Education coming, and when that was brought to the wider SAU meeting, I was somewhat surprised at the adverse reaction to him. So I'm just wondering where that's at, because it's not something I would want to push for, given what the feeling of the SAU, my counterparts was.
Well, I don't know if the vocal minority are representative of everybody on the board.
Okay.
And sometimes that does happen. I think some people are very intrigued by the direction he's coming from. And I think it's a delicate balance of the respect of the profession to transitioning, transforming education. Change is slow. He is willing to come up. He just needs a couple months worth of time.
I'm in no rush for it. I just was, I would want it to be a constructive discussion.
Absolutely.
So,
But I know most people there too thought that even if they're opposed to some of his philosophy, still wanted to bring him up to.
yeah, I just was, yes, I think in the end, folks were like, yes, bring them up. And actually, I think that's what real learning community is bring them up and let's toss it out. But, you know, I wouldn't want to do it if it wasn't something that actually people wanted, so.
I think people wanted to do it though.
When's the contract come back up for Ken?
2026.
We have to give notice by 2023 if we're going to withdraw.
It's already time.
That's why we're beginning now.
Setting the wheels in motion. Okay, board member issues?
I had one thing. After our budget hearing, want to just task the personnel committee, so Jen and Jess, with just looking at all of our salaries. I never really had taken the opportunity to really look at everybody. And there was one position that I just was curious to see if this is a competitive salary in the role, and that's the administrative assistant. And I just want to look at that salary and look at the scope of the expectation of the job and the level of demand of the job, and make sure that the salary is in line with those things.
That's a good catch.
It's a good catch, and we will look at that because there has been some changes over the last 3 years with expectations, roles, and changes, so it's good to review that. I know that the school is usually pretty good about hiring in. There's experience. I know the current person that was in there had some training. It's come up, so they are still coming up to speed. So those things come into play when we hire them, but definitely we'll review that. I'm big on that too.
It's also relevant at the SAU.
Yeah.
They've been looking at that, with that specific position, or that exact type of position, because they were laying their feet there as well. And it's just a matter of trying to figure out how to get this thing. So that's something that we should definitely pay attention to for here, but we should pay attention to for that.
Just from like the parent perspective, also just being in the building and seeing the level of responsibility of that role in particular.
So Kevin, can we ask from you across the board what?
You got it?
Thank you.
Maybe we can put it, maybe after our Bartlett personnel meeting, we can meet as our Jackson personnel and put that on the agenda along with.
Well, I just asked Kevin to give me the other pay ratings of that, just so that's a starting point for me.
Oh, I got you, yeah.
Is what to look
I can
at.
send you to guys.
And then once we have that, then we can send a date and go over it, so.
Okay.
And then Gail's gone, so I wouldn't send a date without her, so we'll get her.
At least I can send the information to you folks.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? Keith, we
I have more of a question. So Neil Moylan is finishing up this year.
He is.
So here's a question for you. So our freshmen, next year's freshmen, went in for their orientation, had this awesome speech pumped up come next year by Neil Moylan. So when do they meet the new principal? Do they get a chance to do that?
We're gonna have a community forum, yeah, we're trying to arrange it later in May
Yeah.
for him to kind of come in.
I mean, in just the student body in general, what about, he might come in and meet them, but what about the, the 8th graders who are going in next year? Do they have any other activities that they still have before next school year?
Before summertime?
Like, I don't know, if I'm asking, is there a plan for that?
Not right now, but I will take that, yeah.
I mean, I'm just thinking, like, if this was Bartlett and our 6th graders were going,
Yep.
over to Bartlett, they would change the principals, and Joe did the first talk, and then, the next Joe's coming in, we would want our kids before the school year to know that and see who the person is and meet the person. I feel strongly about that, guys.
And actually, to jump on that, what would be the possibility of having Kevin come to a Jackson board meeting to
Yeah.
come and meet us? Will we-
Well,
I mean,
so
that's
I want to be careful about his time. He's still a principal, and I will tell you from here on out, just trying to
He's
get
probably
him
pretty good.
to come down is extremely hard. And there are tons of reorganization up in Berlin right now. So what I have talked to him about is coming to an SAU 9 board meeting and introducing himself to you folks, kind of meet and greet, rather than individual boards.
Right.
Yeah, and I was just more curious, because I talked to 4 or 5 of the kids, and obviously there's multiple people whose responsibilities there are, 8th graders, who had no idea, they had that speech with the principal in high school, but none of them knew he wasn't going to be their principal. And, whether they told that they get a chance to meet him, this is necessary, I don't know, I guess I'm just asking.
Fair point.
The question.
Should we consider putting on under old business for the next meeting, or getting it on the agenda, new contract or the
Well, yeah,
the contract.
Yeah, so that's another issue, so we're gonna.
Because, I mean, I don't know, we don't need to set up a committee for it tonight, I think, but maybe we put it on the
Well-
list, maybe the next meeting we could get a committee going.
Right, so I would,
We
yeah.
start for, and because, Jess and I were talking the other day about this, like, you know, yeah, we're gonna work with the SAU, we're gonna work with Bartlett with these things, but we should also have a Jackson specific, like, meaning like, under a board, that would be just beginning the process of thinking about, you know, what we do for that, because obviously we want to work in coordination with everyone, but we also want to make sure that we're covering our own bases as well, so.
Yeah, and I agree, I think we should put that under old business, keep it under old business one, and I also asked, I talked to a few people, I've also asked a community member, so that we have somebody from the community, not just the school board, also learning and facilitating, helping us educate the community and listening closer, whatever, so Sasha Tracy has interest in this as well, and to go over, so she's going to start attending any meetings that we have, to make sure that we're also there, but there's also a community member there, and kind of going back over, for me, it would be the lineage of it, a recap, because a lot of us weren't here when the vote happened, and why we are where we are, and then moving forward as we move on, so that we are not on the 8 ball, like you're saying.
Right, that's what I'm saying, like, take it appropriate, and that's the question I was suggesting.
Absolutely.
Put it under old business, it's on our radar, I mean, what was it?
Yeah, and then in the fall, you know, we talk more about goals, but I would like to start having public forums about the discussion of it, just to get the ball rolling with the community, so that we're all, as a community, knowing what's going on, and we can make an educated decision when we get there.
So whatever makes the most sense for that.
Yeah. Put it under-
CEO,
See.
And I
As a
think,
contractor.
I think it would be tremendously helpful. Obviously, I wish everyone could be at all of those meetings, because we were just talking about it, it's just so much information to process and understand. But that being said, we certainly can, I think, find a way to get it back here. But that group focuses on learning about the various legal relationships between school boards. So whether it's a tuition contract or a cooperative, whatnot, we are not looking at the other options that Jackson has. And that's something I think that we need to do the research on, so that we can answer those questions.
And we know the community will support whatever it is that we do support in the end, so.
And I think it's just, everything just takes so long. So I do want to say thank you to you, Kevin, for getting the ball rolling, because it would not have been in my mind.
Right, yeah, I would like to be on that committee, because I get lots of crazy ideas. And
No, you guys won't.
one crazy idea I have is that on the next contract is, we pay per pupil days at school right now, and the way things are going with the individual learning and stuff like that, if we're gonna do anything similar, maybe we pay per credit instead of per days, because maybe we got a kid who can't take a class and he wants Kenneth, so he's taking it online, so why should we pay Kenneth for that?
Yeah.
So I don't even know if that's possible, but it was just a thought I had, we pay per credit instead of per day.
So,
Yes,
can I
we
raise
have that on.
board membership?
Pardon?
Can I raise a board membership?
Yeah.
So, we talked a little bit about working with selectmen about prioritizing space and things like that for the town. Part of what motivated that was the idea that we respond to a lot of concerns that come to us. Like if Kevin brings us the collaborative unit, the collaborative relationship, or if preschool requested for us to look at. But one of the things I'm hoping is that we as a board can kind of figure out what our priorities are and what we really want to focus on. And obviously we have the SAU collaboration that we need to focus on. We have the preschool. One of the things I'm wondering is how is that personalized learning going? Because now I know we're starting to see test results even from our youngest students. So how do we look at that? And how do we look at what our experience is for our high school students? Is there another way to do it? Keeping in mind confidentiality and things like that as we're getting into this contract decision. So
We used to set goals in prior boards, and it's a good process to go through, and we kind of been hunting on that. And then fashion kind of just, I think, left the idea of doing that, so.
And we've also met in the past, we've met either at the end of the year or the beginning of the year with the staff.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Making sure that we have, we're all on the same page. What are their goals?
Right.
And how do we incorporate that? And what are the SAU 9 goals?
Maybe for the next agenda, we should put on the agenda board goals, and maybe not. If we're prepared to adopt some of that, that's great, but at least begin a discussion on what goals should be. That seems to be kind of board goals.
And
add that to the agenda, board goals, SAU goals, staff goals.
I don't, that's,
I know,
that's,
well,
that's a big, that's missing a board.
you just get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
It's a shame Gail's not here, but she and I spoke briefly. She indicated to me that the staff would be interested in having a follow-up conversation with us on where things are at after the sessions we had a summer or two ago. So maybe we can just start to formalize a little bit.
So the next stage.
Yeah, can I ask a question? I'm not sure if I'm in the right spot in the meeting to ask.
You're not, but I'm allowed to.
With the conversation with Ken and the contract, has there ever been I'm sure there's been a discussion about keeping Jackson kids in Jackson all the way through? Is that even something that would be?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, you want to be a 16-year-old kid and you got 5 kids in the class, your whole class.
But that's not what he's asking for.
Right.
Well,
It's just, that would be part of the discussion like that, but
whatever situation I don't think it is, it may be frustrated.
Yeah.
But I'm just as a parent of
I mean, it sounds great.
yeah.
but that's,
Well, I grew up in Amesbury, Massachusetts, and the town next door from us was actually in New Hampshire, and there was only 6 students, and then they came and went to Amesbury at the end, and they were definitely always, I felt like felt separate, because they had already just done their, one K through 8 or whatever there. So I'm just curious about it. Has that ever been discussed?
one thing that our boards function differently over time, and this is the kind of thing that 10 years ago or 15 years ago, this came across the board. The board would have said, hey, yes, that is something that we should throw into the discussion. So when we did the original vote for cooperative, I don't know how many years ago that was, we had a community committee made up of board members, selectmen, community members, school board members that researched all of our options. And that directive came down from the school board. The school board set up the committee, posted, volunteers for the committee, and then it set goals for the committee, and then it set dates for the committee. There's so much on our plates these days that we've gotten away from functioning kind of like that. And that's why putting the high school contract coming up as old business is at least it's going to keep it on our radar. But that's the kind of idea that we're going to need coming at us, that what we should do for the process moving forward. And I don't know how many subcommittees or ad hoc committees we're going to have to research the contract. Maybe we have 3 different ones. Maybe we have one that gets tasked with doing something. But in order to keep this kind of thing rolling, I kind of bungled the process with the preschool a lot, because we never really set up specific targets. And direct us from the school board saying, this is what we want the objective of this committee to do. And if we're going to have success with whatever we choose to do for the new high school contract, it's going to have a clear process that functions really well, so that ideas like that get flushed out.
There's still a community like this that has the ability to, do something really creative. Maybe there's 3 giant barns in Jackson that could be moved.
But particularly with education changing the way it is
I'm just saying,
if you look at the dollars we spend between our contract with Bartlett and Kennett, we're spending on average $500,000 a year probably.
I think it's more like Green Bartlett Kennett.
I mean, it probably averages around, I don't know what the average is, we can look at it. But that's the kind of thing that we can find out. What is the average that we're spending over the last 10 years? Do we want to spend the same amount going forward? What are our different options? And that's like, we're going to have big discussions about it. And that's why I think that we need to... Yeah, I mean, stuff like that could actually be done in a couple hours. I mean, it wouldn't be hard to facilitate at all.
used to have 8 grades here.
Go through 8, yeah.
But that's the kind of thing that we have to throw in there for conversations when we task a committee to do something. And that should be one of the things we task, and it'll help us decide, okay, how many different committees do we want? Do we want this one committee looking into everything? Or do we want different committees one looking into a cooperative, one looking into a new contract with Conway, one looking at all of our options? options for Jackson. Because when we looked at it before, we looked at sending the kids to Gorham, we looked at sending kids to Freiburg, and we looked at sending kids to Conway. We also considered, looking to send our kids to private schools. That was something that was considered then. The idea of educating our own kids never really formalized from that committee, but there was discussions about forming a high school department in Jackson at one point in time. So I mean, it can go a lot of different directions. And it's probably making Kevin's heart rate go up a little bit just to
No, everyone's having these conversations, really,
and that's the kind of thing that's great there is never going to be a right time to ask that question, other than to throw it out there. So now we have to think about it, and that's great, and that's what we'll have to do. We'll have to really, and I'll sit down with you at some point and try to figure out how are we going to move that discussion forward.
But so my question to you would be, if, when we get to the point where we need some extra help, because we can't do all this as a school board, and I would look, the more community that gets involved, the better we are educated as a community. Would you be interested in joining in a discussion? Thank you. Yeah.
So just as a follow-up, if I might, all of our meetings, those SAU 9 study committee meetings are open to the public in different, we have sometimes 6 people from Albany who show up. And really, the whole purpose of that is to allow for people to gain an understanding of what those options are. It's not even at the point of saying one way is better than the other. It really is, what is a cooperative agreement and what does that look like? How do we fund education in New Hampshire? How do we fund education in Conway, in SAU 9? In really, it's, I think it's been very beneficial. It's a lot of work, but to gain the understanding so that you can have an educated discussion, I think is the first step.
Kevin, when is the next meeting for that?
Well, we're going to do the May 15th.
Right.
That's going to take the place of that one, and then we'll regroup and at that point kind of synthesize how we can do that.
So our next meeting is May 20th. I will not be attending that meeting.
Would you want to change it, or do you know about that?
I think we can move forward. I don't know if everybody else does.
Are you going to have a week?
Yes, for, 6 days.
Is that a meeting with Fargo?
No, the next 7th is the meeting with Fargo.
You going to clear it up with that Bartlett meeting? Or is that too close?
No, that's there. We'll be
That's
there.
their meeting.
We'll be there.
Right, but then couldn't we leave them and have our meeting or no?
Kevin will be there.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You'll be at
You'll get their meeting, and I'll get their meeting.
Got it.
So my next question is, what do we have on the agenda for that meeting?
For May 20th?
No, for the Jackson Joint Board meeting, May 7th.
That's a good question.
We do have discussion, hopefully we'll have some answers on Vicky's position.
Well, the committee doesn't meet until the 31st.
I think we should make notice. We just sold 2 bus routes.
I'd like to get feedback on 2 things. I'd like to get feedback on block scheduling and block scheduling
Oh, block, okay.
and bringing the 6th graders into the middle school.
How's it going?
How's it going?
All right. Okay. We have those 2
And
things.
maybe we even talk about having a committee with them for
Scott's been sitting on
Yeah.
those meetings and he's...
I'm talking about like high school committee.
Yeah, high school committee. Yeah. the joint committee.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have that too?
Yep.
All right.
So the block scheduling and the 6th grade transition to the
6th grade, and then also high school.
Exploratory, joint high school exploratory committee.
Yeah.
Because they started block scheduling last
A
year.
little bit last year.
A little bit last year, and this year, so it's like, how's it, I'd like some feedback on how they think it's going.
Yep.
I can tell you from
Pros and cons.
experience.
Well, that's what I want to ask them. I know what my experience has been.
Already
Right.
said
Obviously.
Okay.
I think it's great because my kid is not a very organized person, and this all of a sudden seemed like he's got it. He knows what, he knows it's all, it's helped. As far as the coordination of it, I've seen it help.
Okay. Anything else we want to add to the Jackson Bartlett schedule, joint board?
I'm wondering if there's a way to get some feedback from them on how do they feel their kids' transition to the high school is going? How does it, like, what are the carrots, what are the, or whatever, what are the roses and thorns for them with their transition into the high school, and how are the kids assimilating?
That'd be a key question, that's what they're gonna
That's
tell.
okay.
Yeah.
It's okay, I should be doing.
They'll have the information ahead of time and be able to get back to us.
Joe Bochi was just to answer those questions too.
Right.
Because our Jackson kids are their kids at that point in time, so he never did that. I'm just assuming that Jody Allen's probably going to take the same approach to that. That's kind of a different question than what you're asking.
I mean, we as Jackson people have surveyed going into 8th grade. I don't know if they provide a survey from their 8th graders and ours going into high school.
I can tell you right now, though, and I don't know if you know this, is that us and maybe Tamworth, where the Bartlett School is the only one that allows the 8th graders to take French and algebra. So they're going into high school already with those classes.
Yeah.
Okay, middle school does.
They do that now?
Yeah.
Oh, I knew we would. I'll have
For a long
it.
time.
Oh, why did the Bartlett people always say, was it the language that they only one doing?
No, they go.
And they get high school credit in language too? Huh.
So do we have any non-public?
I have a motion to go into non-public session.
Okay.
Do you want to slide the manifest first?
Okay, yeah.
And we should do that. So it's awesome.
All right. Thank you, people, for joining us. Thank you.